What is an uncontested divorce? An uncontested divorce means to me, as a divorce attorney, that we are going to court one time and one time only versus a more elongated and extended and contentious court process. That's the big point. Going to court one time only. Also, an uncontested divorce simply would mean that you and your spouse are in agreement to the terms of the divorce, whether it be property, other financial, or child-related matters. You're in agreement, and there's not a contest or litigation about the terms of the divorce really before the case is even filed. So that's the big point. There's agreement and there's only one court date. Why use this approach? Well, three primary reasons. The average divorce in the United States takes some 11 months and costs some $11,000 to $14,000 in attorney's fees on average. An uncontested divorce is a way to lessen both of those numbers, cost and time, and perhaps even the largest issue and point to emphasize is simply it is predictable. You on time, money, and stress level. The case will be over much more quickly, and you'll know and be able to sort of choose the process and choose the results versus having a judge or a third party make those decisions for you. So it saves time, it saves money, and it's just a lot less stressful. How much does a uncontested divorce cost? Well, that's a little bit hard to predict, and I only say that because there's a big difference between the person and the case where, we're only getting somebody divorced and maybe dividing one bank account versus, I don't know, we've had cases where you're dividing multiple houses, millions and millions of dollars, businesses and children. That's a big difference one to the other to say just firmly on this video exact pricing. But here's one point I would absolutely emphasize. An uncontested divorce should be a flat fee payment to your attorney. That's what we do with uncontested divorces. And that's a big deal because if an attorney doesn't have the experience and knowledge to predict the cost on an uncontested divorce, he or she probably is not particularly experienced in what they're doing because, if it's uncontested, you really know the parameters and what that picture looks like. So that's the big point of emphasis in terms of how much it costs. It should be flat fee, predictable cost to you as the client. So what is it? Why use this approach? How much does it cost? And finally, and fourth, what's next? Once we're hired, within the first 2 weeks of our working with you as an attorney, we will prepare the legal settlement documents. Sometimes that's a marital settlement agreement. Sometimes that's what's called an allocation judgment or a custody judgment. In other words, financial stuff, child-related stuff. We'll have that in your hand within 2 weeks of becoming your attorney. Now, on the back end of a case, we will file the case in court and set a court date 1 to 2 weeks later. So what is absolutely predictable is a couple weeks on the front end to get the legal documents ready and a couple weeks on the back end between the time we file a case and generally the court's scheduling. The only unpredictable part of that process is once you have the documents, will your spouse just sign off on them right away? then your entire case will be done in 4 or 5 weeks. But a lot of times there's some negotiation and some back and forth in that middle period. Maybe there's 2 or 3 or 4 drafts. But that's the picture once we're your attorney. Prepare the documents, finalize the settlement with your spouse or through your spouse's attorney, file the case in court, set a court date. That's an uncontested divorce.